I'm Mills. Let me share a little about how I got here. I started my financial journey fall of 2014 when I found myself with only $1.50 to my name. So clearly, I understand the frustration around money mismanagement, struggling with where to start, and the courage it takes to take ownership of your finances. Now I'm a financial coach, speaker, author, and the founder and owner of Mills Knows Bills, where I have the opportunity to teach individuals and businesses how to manage and master their money within 90 days. On this podcast, I will teach you how to stop living paycheck to paycheck, how to pay off your debt twice as fast, and how to reach your financial goals. This podcast is meant to make managing your finances accessible. So if you find that your finances are controlling you, or you simply have no idea where to start, this is the place for you. Click the subscribe button and turn on your notifications to make sure you don't miss out on any new content. I appreciate you tuning in. Let's dive into today's topic. John, thank you for taking time out of your day. Why don't you introduce yourself, tell everybody a little bit about what you do and why you do it.
Thank you very much for having me today, Mills. My name is John Bottega, and I'm a financial advisor with Thorough Financial Group in Raleigh, North Carolina. And I help my clients prepare for the longest vacation of their life, otherwise known as retirement. What we do here is we help put together portfolios, offer advice. Probably the most important thing that we do here is provide education. Education is the key. If you have a client that understands what they're doing and they're working in that same direction and we're working together to achieve a common goal, it's a very beautiful thing. And here, that is the thing we try to work on the most, the collaboration with the clients in building that plan. It's not just about the investments. There's all sorts of investments out there that you can get that kind of return on, but it's that working together, that unity, that driving that force together and being on the same page. And, once again, reaching the goals for my clients.
I love how you teed it up nicely for retirement. But before we dive into retirement specifically, can you tell us a little bit about why investing is important?
Investing it's huge because it gives you freedom. Money, one of the things we talk about with all of our prospects before we bring them on as clients is getting an opportunity to really learn about them and what money means to them. The most common answer we get is freedom. So when they get older, they want to do X, they want to do Y, they want to do Z, whether it's buy a new house, a car, vacation. You don't necessarily have to worry about taking out $15,000 for that, European vacation to take the family. It just offers so much freedom for you. And as we were talking about earlier, the ability to have your money work for you and compound and be able to actually provide a potential income for later on in life, especially at retirement age, when you don't have that income, from your day job for that. So you do have that money working for you. And there's so many different vehicles out there to provide that income for you. And that's one of the roles that I play with my clients is, looking through all the various different products out there to provide that income for my clients.
I love it. And I think what a lot of people don't realize is, yes, having your money work for you is important. But what a lot of people don't realize is if they just saved, they're going to be losing purchasing power due to inflation. Their investing has to not only beat inflation, but make them a little bit more money so they can reach their retirement or other investing goals in general. So I really love the fact that you brought up making your money work for you. And I think it's a good time for us to switch over. So why is saving for retirement important?
Well, saving for retirement is very important, but at the same time, there's so many other different catalysts and different ways to save. But once again, when saving for retirement, it allows the individual, like I said previously, to be able to do things, to be able to offer that freedom to when they want to, like I said, purchase a house, a car. And the way retirement works is, you put X amount of dollars away, compounding interest, and the goal is to not touch that money. The goal is to let that money grow, not take a loan from that money, not take any kind of an early distribution, and let the process work. So often we do run into individuals who will cash out an old 401k because they want the nice new shiny object over here, something tangible. And that's one of the biggest challenges we have. We're selling. I don't even like to use the word selling, but we're helping our clients achieve something that's non-tangible. Yeah. It's more of that vision So that's one of the hardest things. But once again, it's a beautiful thing when you do get to retirement. You're really glad for those decisions you made along the way.
I think you bring up a really good point. I can't tell you how many people I've met who use their retirement savings almost as an emergency fund or a regular savings or investing account. They kind of use it as their catch-all when they want to do something different in their finances. And they do that because they don't have any other options. And a lot of the clients that I work with, they have a lot going on, right? Some of them have an emergency fund. Some of them have debt. Some of them are just starting to invest and all of that. So when does someone know that they're ready to start saving for retirement in particular?
You just brought up so many great points on that, Mills. Thank you for teeing that one up. One of the biggest keys I always find is paying off your debt. Once again, it's a lot more challenging for somebody like myself or anybody in the industry to guarantee a rate of return that is going to be higher than what you're paying on your credit card. American Express, Visa, MasterCard, they spend millions of dollars, if not billions of dollars annually for all those commercials you see on television.
Yeah.
That's your interest that is paying for those commercials. So paying off debt, that's one of the first steps that we always try to make sure our clients are prepared for. And then you just nailed it as well with the emergency fund, making sure you're prepared for the what ifs. What if things don't go exactly as planned? It's not all that common that we do have things go exactly as we originally have in our head or even on paper. So with that being said, have that emergency fund ready to go. And then once that emergency fund's ready to go, I often like to start my clients off with a non-retirement account. Mm-hmm. That non-retirement account gives you the opportunity and flexibility to put money away, invest in the market, see how that's going. But once again, if you do need to take that money out, it's not coming out of a retirement account. You're not going to have to pay the 10% early withdrawal penalty that you may have to if you're not 59 and a half years old. So that to me is a huge key as far as that goes. And then once again, we always work with the tax professionals, CPAs, accountants, to then see where you're correct and ready to start, whether that's an IRA or whatever vehicle we'd be using for that retirement account. But it's all about building the foundation and letting the process work. And you never start off with a roof. You have to start off with a basement.
I love it. And John, you brought up such a good point that I don't think a lot of people caught. It is difficult to earn 28, 29% rate of return consistently. Paying off those credit cards that are looming over your head is a good way to get that 28 to 29% return back in your pocket because it's not costing you that amount of money anymore. I love that you brought that up because it's such a smart way to think about it that a lot of people it doesn't click immediately. And talking about opening a non-retirement investing account, it's almost like a test drive. Being able to see what someone's comfortable with in terms of investing and finding those different vehicles that they want to put their money in. And I love the fact that you talked about, the 10% penalty and all that. People they don't realize it at all. So thank you for bringing up those points. And, you talked about opening a Roth IRA. In general, how can someone get started? Is it better to do a Roth IRA? Is it better to do traditional IRA, invest in a 401k? What's the best way to get started?
It truly depends on what vehicles are available, for someone who may have an employer. So if they've got the opportunity to get a match from that current employer, I always 100% of the time recommend taking that a minimum match from that employer. That is free money.
Yes.
I can't guarantee. I've never gotten a client a 3-digit return in any year, let alone consistently. Yeah. So having that money going in, Roth is a very powerful vehicle to be able to pay the taxes today is a beautiful thing because typically, as we found over the course of time, taxes typically don't go down. So with that being said, pay those taxes today. You may be in a lower tax bracket as well, so it could be even more advantageous to do today. But I always like to have different buckets of money. So it's not necessarily putting everything in a Roth, everything into a traditional. It's about having the non-retirement bucket, the traditional bucket, and the Roth bucket. So that way, when it does come time for that house purchase, automobile purchase, you have the opportunity to sit down with your advisor, your accountant, CPA, and say, okay, what's the best route? Where should I take this money from that I'm not going to get beat up in taxes? As we do get older, we've got required minimum distributions, the traditional IRA bucket that you may have. So we may want to, work together as far as figuring out what the best way to put that is. And, it's not the same for every person. One of the first things we always talk to with clients is, what does retirement look like for you? I have some clients that want to go on 3 cruises a year. Well, from there, we know we've got to put X amount of dollars aside. I've got other clients that want to sit in a rocking chair on the front porch and drink some PBR. Exactly. That's a lot smaller bucket I need over here for that individual. So that's the key is really learning the client and finding out what they want and what their vision is, and then putting that plan together.
You're right. It's not a one size fits all. And I love the fact that you take that step back and really identify what that financial freedom and what that retirement looks like to that individual. And being able to have the money in all these different types of buckets, it's almost like you're buying options for someone. You're buying them the choice to do what they want with their finances. I think that's absolutely fantastic. But a lot of my clients are self-employed. So if they are entrepreneurs, how can they save for retirement if they don't have access to a 401k, 403b, 457?
The government has allowed for various different options for those individuals. I myself am a 1099 employee. And with that, I don't have a 401k from a major corporation behind me as well. I'm not going to go too far into the weeds on each one of these, but we do offer, for those individuals, they have what they call Sep IRAs, which replaces the pension idea. There are traditional or Roth IRAs as well. And you can get a little bit more sophisticated for the individual who doesn't have the 401k. They offer what they call a solo K for that. Once again, that individual entrepreneur who works for themselves. That same kind of idea works very similar to a 401k. And you have the opportunity to invest your money, and then the employer, yourself as well, can also invest. So it kind of works like the same way. So the government's try to really make a level playing field for the entrepreneur and allow them to additionally take those tax breaks as well, which that's where the accountant and the CPA really do come in handy for those kinds of things as well.
So what you're saying is that there's options for
yes.
people. I love
yes.
it. So we're going to switch gears here slightly, and I'm going to ask you a very generic question. Take it how you will. What is a good retirement goal?
Good retirement goal. Over the years, we've heard all sorts of different numbers and figures thrown out there. I just recently had a client ask me that. So I'm actually rather prepared for this question. So,
love it.
So he's a 30-year-old changing jobs. We've got a 401k rollover. So 401k from his previous employer rolling into his current employer's 401k plan. And he asked me, he's like, what should I have? How much money should I have at 30 years old? And the data that I was able to find was one time his salary. So he's currently making $40,000 a year. So based on the data, and once again, these are obviously very rough figures, but having $40,000 saved up in a retirement vehicle at the age of 30 is great. And there's all sorts of different figures. By the time you get to 40 years old, having roughly 3 times the amount of your salary is a great benchmark to use.
Okay.
By the time you get to 50, it is 6 times.
Okay.
But once again, so much of it, the conversation earlier that we were just talking about, what does retirement look like?
Yeah.
So these are just all benchmarks, and these are figures that I found on, one website. You go to another website, they tell you it's something totally different. And there's so many variables that go along with everything. But once again, just great opportunity to kind of put it, to leave it at that benchmark. And okay, I'm doing good. I'm a little behind. But truly, being a little bit behind is not the end of the world. The majority of the people I talk to are behind. And with that being said, there are ways to increase contributions, maybe have to be a little bit more aggressive than that individual who may be 55 years old. Maybe we have to be, slightly more in equities and in fixed income at that time. But there are ways to make it up, and definitely not something to lose sleep on at all.
It's almost like you're taking all these different pieces of the puzzle. You're gathering all these little bits of information about this person, and you're forming a picture together to find how all of it kind of fits together. I love that.
Great analogy.
I know we talked about, some pros and cons of investing in retirement vehicles versus non-retirement vehicles. Did you want to touch upon any other pros and cons of the two different types of accounts?
The non-retirement account just gives you options.
Yeah.
Especially with my younger clients that, I hate to say it, are 20, 30, 40 years before they get to that 59 and a half, before they get to that retirement. Mm-hmm. One of the biggest keys is enjoying life and not letting money stress the individual out. So, for that automobile purchase, for that house purchase, for that college savings, having that non-retirement account, I can't stress how important that is enough. And being able to enjoy the journey, that's one of the cliches that, I've really used over the last few years. I think COVID's been a great opportunity to really stop, slow down, smell the roses, and realize, for all of us that are very fortunate to still be here, that life's going to be okay. We're going to get through this. And to, at that point, once again, enjoy that journey and realize that, if we work hard, we save, we're persistent on saving. That's always the key. You've got to pay yourself. So often they'll pay Visa, they'll pay the so-and-so, they'll do all these other things, but they need to pay themselves as well. And that's often very overlooked.
Is it worth having any money in a regular savings account at all? And if so, how much?
Ooh, that is one of the trickier questions that I get asked. And I'm talking everyone from my household, me and my wife, to clients as well.
Mm-hmm. I mean, you can answer it and then I can answer it. You can see how it really just depends on the person too.
It truly does. It's, the conversation that's happened in my house is, we have a Wells Fargo bank that's right down the road from our house. And to be able to drive over there and get X amount of dollars out, there's something comforting about that. Now, to have money in the market and to say, okay, I need X amount of dollars, it's a process. It's a few days before that money clears, and actually gets transferred in. So the running joke my wife and I have is, if anyone ever meets my wife, she is very quiet and not the one you would ever expect to go to jail. But if she ever needs bail money, she wants to know that I can go to Wells Fargo and get her the bail money to get her out, and I don't have to leave her in jail for 3 days. Yes. So we've had our own little conversations as to how much that figure is, and the rest of it, yes, we have put into the market and at a comfortable level that we're both fine with. But there is not a magic number, as I always tell people. I just had clients recently that we had this conversation, and he wanted $10,000 in the savings account. She wanted 25. And they said, all right, well, what do we do? I'm like, well, it's pretty obvious. And 25 is the number. Both participants need to, when they rest their head on the pillow, be able to sleep well at night, knowing that there's X amount of dollars within local distance there. So it's a kind of a loaded question, but there's not just that one size fits all answer on that one in my world. Now, I'd love to hear what Mills has to say.
No, I mean, I agree 100%. So for example, we have about 1 month of our emergency fund in savings, but in total, we have 3 months of an emergency fund established. So we have 1 month on hand, liquid, because if we need that money today, I want to know that I can have that money today. But I also want to feel comfortable with a 3-month emergency fund in total in the event that I lose my job again or something happens. But the additional 2 months we have conservatively invested. So we're earning some return on it to beat inflation and get higher returns than what a savings account would afford. But I also know that if something happens and I can foresee that it's going to be longer than a month, I can start the process of selling whatever it is that money is invested in, so I can then have that cash in hand at that point. Anything extra is highly aggressive, right? Other investment and retirement savings are highly aggressive because I like taking risk. I'm young enough to afford that risk. But like John says, it's really not a one size fits all. Do you ever advise couples to keep their accounts separate, John?
Not knowing the relationship, this is a tricky question as well. In the IRA world, the acronym is for individual retirement account. So that would be an individual account there. So there would be no commingling of those kinds of retirement assets. On the non-retirement account, is it doable? Sure. Nothing wrong with that. But at the same time, the most common thing we do is a joint account. And one of the most important things, whether it's a retirement account, a non-retirement account, is making sure there's a beneficiary on each one of those accounts, as well as a contingent beneficiary. God forbid something were to ever happen. The last thing you want is to have to deal with probate, the family to deal with all those kinds of things. But just making sure, and even if it is, individual's account with the spouse being the beneficiary, that's very, very nice, to have that lined up. And one of the biggest things we always talk about when talking about beneficiaries, most people don't do this, your local bank, checking account, savings account. More times than not, those particular types of accounts don't have beneficiaries. The bank will not ask you if you'd like to have a beneficiary on that account. God forbid something were to ever happen, the heirs don't have access to that money to then pay the mortgage, the car payment while the estate gets settled. So that's while you wait for kind of a long-winded answer to the joint account. But once again, I think it's a very important part is that beneficiary aspect.
Yeah. Every couple does it differently. I've seen some couples where absolutely everything is shared on things that they can share, right? I've seen other couples where they keep everything separate. I've seen some couples who kind of do something in between where they have one joint checking account. They each put money into it. They then pay their bills and then everything else is separate. If you are thinking about joining any accounts, what it really boils down to is communication and agreeing upon what both of you are comfortable with. Just as John said, if one person wants $10,000 in the bank and the other person wants $25,000 in the bank, you're going to go with that $25,000 because that means both of you are comfortable and confident with your finances. So if you're looking for questions to kind of spark that conversation, you can use the Mastering Your Money Mindset Guide. Have your partner go through those questions. Then both of you review them together and answer them. That will start the conversation almost without the emotion. So you can see where the other person stands. And then you can bring in okay, what are your thoughts on joining this account versus keeping it separate?
Beautiful parts there too is there's not a limit to the number of accounts that can be had.
Absolutely.
So you can have, an individual can have their own account as well as a joint account. So it's not like you're only allowed to have 3 different types of accounts, 4 different types of accounts. So we do have clients that have various different types of accounts as well. So great question.
Absolutely. John, can you also explain the difference between a Sep IRA and a Roth IRA?
The biggest difference between a Sep as well as a traditional IRA versus a Roth IRA is how the taxes are done. So on a Roth IRA, we use the idea of making $50,000 a year, contributing 10% of the pay to that. So that would mean, $5,000 was put into the Roth. So $45,000 is what the individual made. The government still believes that you made $50,000 for tax purposes. So you pay all the taxes today on that. That $5,000 gets put into an account. That account then grows over the course of the next 10, 15, 30 years. When that account is redeemed, no additional taxes are taken out from the contribution or what is earned during that time frame. Kind of the exact opposite with the Sep as well as with the traditional IRA. Using that same example, $50,000 is what the individual made. They contributed 10% of their pay, so $5,000. The government now believes that individual only made $45,000. They only pay the taxes on $45,000, not that whole $50,000. Tricky thing is 5, 10, 15, 30 years later, when they take a distribution from that account, they then have to pay taxes on that. So that's one of the problems that we run into often is clients think they have these large nest eggs, X amount of hundreds of thousands of dollars, possibly even millions of dollars, but they're not realizing that they still need to potentially pay 22, 24, 28% in taxes off of that when they take that distribution. So that's definitely one of the challenges and goes right back to the question of, what I enjoy, the different buckets. So you can have a Roth bucket, you can have a traditional bucket, Sep bucket, if you will, and then a non-retirement bucket.
How can they open a Sep IRA or solo K? Is that on their own? Do they have to talk with someone like you? 'Cause a lot of them already have Roth or traditional IRAs.
Sure. We offer free consultations. So I'm always up for the conversation of learning more about what an individual's financial situation is. It's, to then, at that point, make a decision. Is this something that's a good idea? And where are you in the, using the different buckets? Because once again, if things don't go exactly as planned and you have those contributions into a SEP and need to take a distribution from there, you also have the taxes, in addition to potentially a 10% penalty for not being 59 and a half. But yeah, once again, always glad to have conversations, meet new people. Like I said, we're in Raleigh, North Carolina. Zoom has made our life significantly easier. This is something we were not able to do prior to COVID. So this is one of the positives that came out for us.
Absolutely.
So definitely has made everyone in the world a little bit easier for us to connect with.
John, do you have any general advice that you would like to leave us with today, or tips, I should say?
The sooner you start, the better.
Yeah.
Mills and I were talking earlier, the beautiful part of compounding interest, letting your money work for you. It can almost be like ripping off a Band-Aid. Retirement, saving for retirement, it's a long game. It's not a race. It's not one of those, the number of people who have reached out to me over the course of the last 6 months and have called up and asked me how much GameStop they have in their portfolio, or Bitcoin. Bitcoin may be a little bit different, but that conversation comes in a lot. And I have expressed to them, look, we take care of your investments here. Our goal is to make sure that money is here for you when you retire. If we want to go gambling, let's go to Vegas. That's where we do our gambling. And it's fun to have a little side account. You want to buy a little bit of this or a little bit of that. It keeps that heart going, keeps the thrill there.
It does.
But it's, that's not the end all be all, as far as, the investments. I know individuals who try to buy these 3-cent stocks, and before you know it, they think it's going to go to 15 cents and they're going to be rich. If that was the case, everyone would be doing it. And that's not how it happens. It's slow and steady wins the race. That tortoise in the air kind of idea. And it really does work with that, and watching it compound. Companies pay dividends, mutual funds will pay the dividends, and reinvest in that and having it work for you. That's probably the best advice that I can give to somebody. And once again, starting earlier the better.
I love the gambling part of it. I think there's nothing wrong with investing in Bitcoin or other cryptocurrency. I think where a lot of people do go wrong is when they put all of their investments in it. I think it's better to put money in there that if you lost all of it, you'd be okay, right? It's not money that you're relying on. So thank you for making that clarification. I think there is something to say about having your heart racing a little bit when it comes to investing. It's fun.
Exactly. It's, and that's the whole point is it's supposed to be fun. It's not supposed to be painful. This isn't supposed to be a visit to the dentist. This is supposed to be something you enjoy. And once again, watching your money work for you and watching it grow, and once again, making yourself rich, not making somebody else rich. That's also the biggest key, and being able to, have the opportunity and to have those options when, later on in life, like I said, that new flashy car. Okay, great. I would love to have, that car. Boom. All right. We get it. We get some money from over here. We do this, we do that. And that's kind of the role an advisor would play, whether it's, myself, somebody else. Having that advice and that individual to talk to is huge. It's very valuable.
Thank you, John, so much for taking time out of your evening. I really enjoyed our conversation, and I hope you all got some value out of it.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much. Thank you for the invitation, Mills. Happy belated birthday to you.
Thank you. Happy belated anniversary to you.
Yes. Thank you very much. This was a pleasure. Thank you very much, Mills.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for listening and allowing me to be part of your financial journey. As a thank you for tuning in, I'm offering you first access to special tools and information. Simply subscribe to my newsletter found on my website at millsknowsbills.com, where you can find my free budget setting tool, workshops, and so much more. You can also connect with me on social. I have Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, and Pinterest. All links are available in the show notes. I appreciate you tuning in and spreading the love. Thank you for all the positive comments on social, and you know I love seeing your 5-star reviews as well. Always remember, mo money, no problems. I'll see you next time.